All right, welcome to the FLYRS show. Tyler Nelson here. I am super stoked for today's show. We have the legend Gene Hamilton from Better Ride on. Gene was a snowboard instructor back in the 90s, founded Better Ride almost 25 years ago, was one of the first mountain bike skills courses out there. Still going strong to this day. Has coached many professional racers. Pretty accomplished racer himself. UCI World Masters bronze and silver medalist and U.S. national champion, if I got that right. Gene, thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Did I get that right? It's been almost 25 years, right?
Yeah, it'll be 25 years next month, actually.
Yeah. So you're in Sedona this weekend for one of your clinics, and you're still traveling all over the country to do your courses.
Trying to travel less.
Yeah.
Got a wife and kids, so
yeah,
I miss home.
Yeah, based out of Moab there. Yeah. Awesome riding in Moab. Sedona's kind of similar. People like to compare the two, obviously.
I think they're so different.
Yeah.
I think they're equally beautiful. I think in some ways Sedona has some spots that are just more stunning almost than most things in Moab. But then Moab just has so much more volume of stunning stuff. We've got Canyonlands, and we've just got millions of acres of that. And for some reason in Sedona, it seems like it was just concentrated in that one area,
Yeah, totally. They are. People like to, I think the similarity is the rocks, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Riding the rocks, and that could be where it stops and ends. But yeah, I had to go back in the vault for this one, but I took your course back in 2012 for the first time, so 12 years ago, and then I took another one 6 years ago. But I come from an aviation background. I was a flight instructor, and so for me, like right off the bat, 12 years ago was when I was getting really stoked on mountain biking. I knew it was something that I enjoyed, I wanted to get good at. I was also preparing for a race at the time. Coming from that instructor background, I knew it was huge to like get instruction from the get-go, not only to accelerate the process, because I think it's huge to learn. It's so much easier to learn things the right way at the beginning than it is to break old habits, right?
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like a nerd sometimes because I broke this down, and I have this sometimes black and white thinking. I'm like, I thought every course I did was just going to sell out from day one. There's all these people flailing about in their mountain bikes, and you would think they would want to know the right way. And you and I don't think like most of the population. I don't.
Right.
At least with mountain biking, I got so much pushback when I started. People tell me you can't teach this, and I'd ask other pros how to corner faster, and they'd say, let off the brake, you wuss. Or they'd say, well, everyone's got their own style. And I'm like, well, I come from a snowboard racing background, and you're right, there's a lot of different styles, but there's one style that's really efficient and tends to win, and most other styles, well, they might look cool.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. That's funny too, because coming from back then, there wasn't a whole lot of courses out there, and you really...
Yeah, I was looking for it, actually.
Yeah.
And there was this great coach, Blair Lombardi, who Marla Streb had worked with, and I called her up, and I wanted to take her course, and she knew I was a coach, and she was worried about me stealing her stuff. And it's really funny now that I look back on it, because that's what all coaches do.
Yeah.
We learn from each other. We steal each other's stuff. That's how you get good. If someone tells you something that's better than the way you're phrasing something, you're not going to use that now.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, or tells you the whole concept that you didn't grasp before, and you're like, So, it's like a team effort is what I mean. It's like, we're always working together.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's funny that you mentioned that, because there is a lot of, Flagstaff Youth Riders, we've got almost 1,000 kids in our program
Whoa.
now.
Really?
We've turned into one of the biggest programs in the country.
That's bigger than Durango's, I think.
It's close. They're a little bit bigger than us
Wow.
still, but yeah, it's pretty close. And we teach your concepts because I've been to all, that's what I did 8 years ago. Not only did I take your course twice, but I took them all because I was like, just wanted to be a connoisseur and see what all the different, do exactly that, learn from the best and see what all the different ways to learn and to teach these concepts is. And so, yeah, I did everything under the sun. I've done NICA, ACA has their own version. I mean, there's a few different now. There's much more than there used to be.
Yeah.
There's a few different out there, but they all, and some of them have, taken your courses way back in the day, and now they're teaching them. Some of them are teaching the way that you taught them, and some of them aren't necessarily teaching the way that you taught them. So maybe that's a good segue into another question I had. So 12 years ago would be kind of your midpoint in your trajectory of 24 years of doing this, being in the game. How has your course changed from 12 years ago? Maybe two-part question, from 12 years ago and from the beginning.
Well, it hasn't changed that dramatically as far as what I'm teaching, because from working with people like Greg Menard and a lot of the great athletes I've coached, I had a lot of input, and I'm rather studious. I like to watch video. But what do you do there? And but the most amazing thing over the years is I've had so many students, I'll say something, and they're like, do you mean do this? And I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I mean. And I'm stealing that phrase.
Yeah.
Because that gets across what I wanted to say a little better, actually. Like, you communicated that better than I did.
Yeah.
And so over so many years of doing it, I've got so much help in how I communicate and seeing what works and seeing, because the whole goal isn't to fill your head with knowledge. The goal is to get you riding much better.
Yeah.
And so you have to get people to do it at least remotely well in the course so they can feel it, and then they know what they're practicing after that.
Yeah, totally. And easier said than done. You, I think, are kind of more different in that lane too. Like a lot of, like the widespread, like coaching coaches and stuff is kind of a, sometimes you don't get the sense that they spend a lot of time with the material that they're coaching. And you are like, you can tell that you spent so much time breaking down every single piece, like point by point by point, exactly how to teach it the best way so that it's makes the most sense. It's the easiest to learn. And that's not always the case.
Well, in their defense, they're well-meaning people that want to help other people.
Yeah.
And some of them don't have a lot of experience yet, and they may end up being a great coach one day. I'm sure I wasn't the best coach when I started.
Yeah.
Luckily I started in a totally different sport. I was a pretty good coach by the time I got to mountain bike coaching, but I've learned a tremendous amount in the 25 years.
Yeah.
So, it's, and a lot of these people, it's not their full-time job.
Right.
And it's not their obsession, so, to expect them to go above and beyond their course they took, that might be a lot to expect for somebody that's maybe getting, I don't know what the wages are like or anything.
Yeah.
But for many of them, I think it's a part-time job, so they have to keep up at whatever else they're also doing, learning for that profession also, I'm assuming, so that splits their time, unfortunately.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that still is interesting to me to this day, because you still see it out there, is like the whole weight back versus weight over the bottom bracket. Like,
you still see that?
Can that go away? Yes. Oh yeah.
Oh, I thought when I teach that, I thought people are like, oh yeah, I've heard that 100 times. No, that's
still part of some curriculums, is getting the weight back, butt back, behind the seat, over the tire, whether it's for descending or braking.
They're liable. I'm sorry. They're putting somebody in a really dangerous position, really dangerous. If I paid someone to teach my son that and then my son broke his collarbone, I'd be a little upset, you know, because you're teaching him how to be out of balance and out of control. I mean, it's just a non-defensible. It's so easy to prove my point. That, you know. It's not just my point. I mean, I learned it from a motocross book. It said all your weight should be on the pegs the whole time.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, I wonder if that's the same on a mountain bike. So then I started doing it, and I was good friends with Marla Streb, and I said she was doing a course with me, a downhill course at Bootleg Canyon in like 2002 or 3. It was a long time ago, and I'm like, hey, I learned this new thing, you know, from this motocross book. You're supposed to have all your weight on the pedals. I've been experimenting with it. It's amazing. And she's like, oh, you didn't know that? And I'm like, I wish you had told me, you know. But she'd been doing it for a while, apparently. And, you know, it's a much more athletic, ready position in balance and in control. Whereas when you get your weight way back, you're not neutral in any way. You can only move in one direction. And the direction you get yanked into is forward and down. So that as you go over the fulcrum of whatever it is you're getting yanked down, that's just going to cause the bike to almost catapult you and slap you into the ground.
Yeah.
You know?
And you've got a great, maybe multiple, at least one great video. You've got an old school one, which I just pulled out of the vault now, which is like shows you going down, and maybe it's like Phoenix or something.
Yeah, it's at South Mountain.
How it bucks you around, your arms are extended, you have zero maneuverability whatsoever in that position, and then the other position, and that video like breaks it down perfectly. You're like, if you don't watch that video and be like, oh, okay, yep, that makes sense. I should have all my weight centered up at the bottom bracket.
Yeah, because I mean, I looked pretty out of control when I got my weight back.
Yeah.
And I didn't get my weight fully back because I'm afraid to, you know what I mean? So there was,
right.
I wasn't getting back as far as I used to. I used to drag my butt on the rear tire.
Yeah.
You know, and that was completely out of position, I learned, you know?
Yeah. I saw some funny, I mean, very recently, I want to say just a few years ago, video on somewhere, I don't know if it's YouTube or something, where someone had weight way back, doing one of those, going like 30 miles per hour into a hard stop, get way back, and the front wheel's just like vibrating, and they like slow-moed the front wheel, and I'm like, and they thought it was cool, and all the comments, everyone thought it was cool, and I'm like, the front wheel should not be doing that. That tells you that it's not a good position. It was hilarious.
Oh yeah, considering your front brake is almost 100% of your stopping power on this steep, loose trail.
Yeah, you totally lost it.
I mean, that's so funny.
Yeah, but
yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, again, I've never taken another person's course, and I don't want to ever talk bad about somebody else that's trying to help other people.
Yeah.
I just disagree on some points I've heard that they make.
Yeah, to me that's kind of a big one, and when it's tough teaching kids too, is because we'll hear kids say those things or say, I shouldn't touch my front brake because I'm going to go over the bars.
Oh, yeah,
like, oh my gosh. So some of this stuff, and that's the other thing, is we're like, oh, we got kids. We can get them at that point where they don't have bad habits to brake, but they got the stuff their parents told them that are those things that you're like, oh, geez, okay.
What's so funny about that is I was watching this man. I was in Palo Alto doing a course, and in the middle of the course, I think we were taking like a little lunch break. A man came out and he was teaching his son how to go down this steep grassy hill. I mean, tiny kid, maybe 6 years old. And he kept telling, let's just say his name was Johnny. He's like, get your weight back, Johnny, get your weight back, Johnny. And Johnny was perfectly centered the whole time.
Yeah.
And I realized he was probably an engineer because most of my students in Palo Alto are engineers or professors or something. So I went at it in a very scientific way because I learned when I first started coaching, never tell a parent how to parent.
Yeah.
You know, and which doesn't stop me sometimes, but it doesn't go over well.
Right.
So anyway, you know, I convinced him, you know, with the physics of it, and he's like, oh, cool. But so much of mountain biking actually is intuitive if you're 6 or younger. I'm not sure the exact age where it changes, but like weight on your pedals just feels normal. That's how we do everything.
Yep.
We don't walk leaning backwards, bracing ourselves on the wall, holding onto a wall so we don't fall on our butt.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like we're holding
Yeah.
onto our handlebars if we're leaning back. I mean, and riding a bike is not much different than walking or running as far as the physics are concerned. We just go at a higher rate of speed,
Yeah, to me that's kind of the most telling is if you look at if you watch kids get on a bike and have them, teach ready position and have them, they'll naturally just exactly have their weight centered over their pedals. That's just like the natural position for them. They will just do that until you tell them to do something different.
And now they're going, why are they telling me to get out of balance? This feels weird.
Yeah.
And that felt normal to me, you know?
Yeah, totally. That's a thing too that's interesting because there's so many, like that's that fundamental position on a bike, like have all your weight on your pedals, right? You're standing. There's just that, like, it's like, can we just agree on what that position is? Like there's ready position, attack position, athlete. I don't even know what to call it. Do you have a name for it anymore? I feel like back in the day we called it attack positions.
I don't like titles like that anymore.
Okay.
Unless there's a very, very distinct definition of that.
Yeah.
So like the attack position, if you talk to 10 different coaches, you might get 10 different descriptions of that. So a lot of things that people say, they're catchy little flip phrases. And if you understand everything behind that little phrase, I think that phrase is great because it reminds you of all this other stuff.
Yeah.
But like, there's so many repeated phrases. Like my favorite is a thing I think I may have invented. I don't know. I started using it in 1999. Was the phrase bike body separation. And I no longer use that phrase.
Okay.
Because I hear coaches, bike body separation. And they're not explaining the goal. The goal of separating from your bike is to stay in balance, to stay above the bottom bracket. So when the bike leans in a corner, you want to be above your bike. My goal is not to have bike body separation. It's just I have to have bike body separation if my bike is leaned and I want to stay on top of my bike.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. It's like, why are we doing this?
Yes.
Why are we even using a phrase? What are we coming up with a phrase for? What's the point?
Exactly. It's like explaining a symptom of something, but not the cause. It's like, well, that's a horrible symptom. Well, let's figure out the cause because the symptom's not going to help us fix it. You know what I mean? Like we have to find the cause, then we can fix this.
Yep. Yeah, totally. Yeah, good stuff. I could talk about that stuff forever. So you have your courses, you have different variances of your courses. I want to say like you've got your traditional course, the one that I took that I would know very well, and then you do an enduro course and an XC course. What would you say are there like key differences between your courses and the makeup of those?
Not hugely. Some of the best enduro racers I've coached have taken like 3 or 4 of my regular courses because my enduro courses or downhill courses didn't align with their schedule as well.
Yeah.
And, there's just a few things that I add in a downhill course and some, or downhill or enduro course, and a few things that I basically add in a sense with a normal course. And then with the cross-country race course, it's mostly to appeal to racers just because a lot of racers, unfortunately, don't feel that that an amateur ride, like an amateur, not amateur's not the word I'm looking for, a non-racer is going to be as good as they are probably. And they're afraid they're going to be with a bunch of people not like them in the course.
Yeah.
So I do the cross-country race course for them. And I do talk about a fair amount of strategy that applies to skills and how you can use this skill to gain time, or save time.
Yeah.
And so that's really the main difference. But the heart of all of them is the same. It's the whole hierarchy of skills.
Yep.
Which one of my former coaches who I ran into in California last weekend, I like his hierarchy. Mine starts with vision, and then body position. His starts with fun and then vision and then body position. And I like that. I think he's got me beat on that one. So
yeah, that is
the number
good.
one goal is, we're riding bikes. We got to be having fun.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's why I do it. I mean, it's my personal meditation.
Yeah. That's, the thing you always got to remember. We're actually like kind of redoing our curriculums now and like going through all right, vision, body position. And then it's always like, well, fun is always the number one goal.
Yeah,
you got to make sure that,
especially
where are you going to plug
kids.
that in? Yeah.
Especially with kids.
Especially with kids. Cause, it's not necessarily always fun for them. Sometimes, depending on where they're at in the scope, sometimes just going uphill just is absolutely not fun. But you got to go there to get to go down. So, but yeah, it's good to keep that in mind for sure. Trying to think of the next. So I took. Speaking of that, people take your course a number of times, and I took it twice. I took it, like we said, 12 years ago, and then again 6 years ago. Because your courses are typically 3 days, like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday for the most part over a weekend, and there is so much. It's like drinking from a fire hose. There's so much information because you're just like your wealth of knowledge is so immense. It's like, man, like you just cannot. Your brain can only handle so much. So there's so much of that you just, especially depending on how beginner or not you are. I mean, either way, I think it's going to be just a ton of info to absorb all at once.
Yes.
And so you're going to miss a ton the first time around.
And that's okay. That's what you do in life. That's how we learn. My favorite Zen saying is, when the pupil is ready, the teacher will appear.
Yeah.
Right? And so like Mitch Ropolato took 5 of my normal courses, my speed course, which I don't do anymore. That was really fun though. That was really fun.
Yeah.
And a couple of private lessons. But Mitch said in each course he would take, I would say something. And he'd be like, Gene, that's gold. You should have said that in the previous course. I'm like, I did.
Oh, yeah.
But he was getting some piece he needed. He was getting a very important piece that he needed to work on, and that piece is just the bonus piece. That's why there's a hierarchy, right? Within every skill, like the number one thing in cornering is looking through the corner.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And then successively it goes to different things, such as when you finish your braking to cut speed, your body position, exactly where you're looking and how you're looking. There's so much to it, but so it starts with a big concept, my course would start with a big concept, like look ahead, keep your weight in your pedals. That's probably the biggest thing someone who's like a beginner gets away from my course.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then once you get good at actually looking ahead, which very few people are good at, that's the hardest thing in the world to get good at, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why I have drills to help you with that, because it's everything. But so, I lost my train of thought actually for a second.
Yeah. Well, the vision piece is.
The hierarchy too.
Yeah.
So you tend to get the big pieces in the hierarchy the first time you take a thing, or you read a book. Like most of the books that I've read that help me with my coaching, I've read 3 times, and I'll underline. First time I'll highlight in yellow everything that I think is awesome, and then the second time, when I'm reading through, I'm reading the stuff I highlighted in yellow. And I'm like, yeah, I know that stuff. I know that. Where's the good stuff? And then I highlight in blue.
Okay.
Right? And then the third time I read that book, I'm reading through the yellow and I'm reading through the blue. Like, yeah. Because I've already started to put that knowledge into my life, and I wasn't ready for the next piece, which may be the biggest piece, because I had to learn the precursors first.
Yeah. Yep. Totally. And I like the way you break it down, and you've got you've got so much content on your website there, so many articles and stuff. And that's, like speaking of your courses and the layout and how much knowledge, like you'll spend, if I remember right, it's like the first day, like half a day on vision. And I've went to other courses where vision isn't even a topic.
Yeah.
And it's like, it is everything. Like if there's like one fundamental thing, correct me if I'm wrong, if there's one fundamental thing that can immensely improve your riding everywhere, it's what vision and where you're looking on the trail, right?
Yeah, I mean, your perception is reality. If you're looking straight down, that trail's gnarly, rocky, scary, and you're probably gonna go really slow. Plus,
Yeah.
looking down is makes you feel like you're going really fast, just like in a car, right? You know,
Yeah.
if you look down at the dashed white lines, hopefully when you're a passenger in an automobile, it feels like you're going a million miles an hour. Then you focus on a mountain that's way up ahead, and it feels like you're doing 20, but you're actually doing 70 miles an hour.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so, but yeah, you know, the biggest thing is if I'm looking 6 seconds ahead down that trail, and you're looking 2 seconds ahead, which would be ahead, I suppose, I have 4 more seconds to process what I need to process, where that big rock is, where that little rock is. I've got 4 more seconds,
Yeah.
3 times. So it feels like I'm going 1/3 the speed you're going.
Yeah. Which is huge.
Even though I might be going twice the speed you're going. I mean, who knows? But you know, I've slowed everything way down.
Yeah. Yeah, it's huge, and it's fun to watch that, like in cornering alone, right? If you look at the exits of corner, like what's the one thing you can do to be faster through a corner?
Yeah.
Look at the exit and don't get locked into it. You get locked into it, and your brain, like, where are we going next? Like, that's where you're going. You're going into the corner. You're not going out of the corner.
That ruined my first 5 years of pro downhill racing. That's 50% of the reason I started Better Ride,
Yeah.
because that was me. You know, my joke is I was the fastest pro in the world into every corner.
Into the corner.
Unfortunately, I was the slowest coming out, or not the slowest, thankfully.
Yeah.
But I was slower than the best, way slower than the best coming out of those corners.
Yeah. And that's kind of you've got like a little kind of guarantee that I'll guarantee you'll be X amount faster.
Yeah.
And it kind of boils down to that, like, just looking properly in vision, right?
Yeah, I mean, I had a student.
Among other things, but
Did you take the course that I can't think of her name.
it was Phoenix was the first one that I took, and Phoenix was both of them. But
Yeah,
it's close.
Was it a cross country race course or a regular course?
I think they were both regular courses.
Linda Wallenfels is who I was going to say.
Mm.
So she's a big time coach. She lives in
totally.
St. George, and she used to be she was Great Britain national champion. She's a phenomenal racer and a fitness type coach. What were we talking about right before that? There's a reason I mentioned her.
You're guaranteed to get people faster.
So in the course with her, which I thought you were in, but apparently you weren't, there was a guy from Albuquerque. And I get one person like this. He's the last one I've had like this. So it's been like 10 years, I guess. But I used to get 1 or 2 people like this every year. And throughout the course, he really wasn't paying attention to me. And I didn't know this, but the other student said he was mumbling things like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Or I knew this. Everybody knows this. Or, you know. And so on Sunday, before the course started, he got there early. And I always get there a little early or try to. And he's like, hey, Gene, the course has been okay, but I pretty much knew everything you taught me. I live in Albuquerque. It's a 6-hour drive home, and I don't like to drive at dark. I'm going to leave at noon. You know, and I'm like, okay. You know, and I offer a money-back guarantee, and I figured on Monday I'd get an email saying, dude, I knew everything you taught me. Can I get my money back?
Right.
And I didn't get an email from him on Monday, but I did get an email from him on Tuesday. And it was fascinating. It started kind of like I thought it would. It was like, hey, I pretty much knew everything you taught me. I was disappointed in that course. But I decided to use the vision stuff you taught me, you know, to test it out. And one part of the course where apparently he was paying attention was we had talked about it's nice to have a loop or an out and back that you do once or twice a week.
Yeah.
Because it's just great. Like, I want to try these new tires. Are they faster or are they slower? I want to try, you know, looking further ahead. Is that faster? Is that slower? Different tire pressure, whatever, you know. So he said, oh, yeah, I've got a course like that. My record's 1 hour, 1 minute, and 30 seconds, you know.
Yeah.
And so he went to that track. And he said in the email, he's like, you know, I was practicing looking ahead, but, man, it felt slow. But you told me if you're looking further ahead, it would feel slow. So, you know, I kept doing it. But I'd check my heart rate monitor every now and then, and it was slow. And maybe his power meter, maybe the power meter he checked at the end, I'm not sure. but it still felt slow. But you said it would feel slow and I'd be more efficient. And he goes, when I crossed the finish line, as I'm waiting for Strava to load, I looked at my heart rate data and it was 4% below normal for that loop. And I looked at my my power meter data and it was about 4% below normal too. So I was pretty disappointed. Then Strava popped up and it said 56 minutes and 10 seconds. So I took 5 minutes and 20 seconds off of my 1 hour time, basically.
Yeah.
Right. So the next sentence was like, so I guess your stuff might work or something like that. He was still disgruntled.
Oh yeah.
but
beat it by 10%.
Yeah, I mean that blew my mind because I
Yeah.
figured, I've always said 2 to 4 minutes, and that's just from extrapolating when I look down how much time I lose, and if I was to do that over an hour multiple times, how much time would I probably lose?
Yeah.
And I figured it'd be about 2 to 4 minutes for me. And apparently for some people, it's almost 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's huge.
and that's huge. And I've had, I've been fortunate enough to coach a lot of Nike racers in my courses. And it's really cool because I follow them all on Strava. And, they're getting, a couple of them are like, say this on their Strava, which I love. Like that Better Right course is still paying off, man. Like look at the descents. You know what I mean? It's like, but even my climbs have gotten faster with my vision, and the skills I learned.
Yeah.
And that just stokes me out,
Yep. Yeah, that's huge. Are there things? So man, I was gonna say coaching hundreds of people, but now it's probably been thousands of people that you coach. I mean, are there throughout the thousands? Now you probably got a pretty good handle. Are there specific traits that you see in people that are able to kind of pick up the information and accelerate and progress faster than others, like in your camp and then afterwards?
Yeah, I think it really depends, and this is again understandable. People have lives too, jobs, families, things like that.
Yeah,
It really depends. You're going to get out of skills practice you're going to get out of skills practice what you put into it, basically.
right.
You know what I mean? And some people, maybe their love for the sport isn't as obsessive as mine is. I would say very few have that big of an obsession with the sport. And then, other people, it's just, it's their favorite thing to do in the world, but they've got a job that's very demanding and they have a family. And so they just don't have the time
Yeah.
to put into the practice.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
but what is interesting is I'm the kind of person, and I thought everyone was this way, and apparently this is not true at all from taking a motorcycle course where I was the only one to ask questions. A lot of people don't need to know the why. If the coach says do this, they'll just do it.
Yeah.
And I've just been a skeptic all my life. If you don't tell me why I'm doing this, I don't believe you. Like tell me why. Show me the science.
Yeah. That's interesting. That kind of explains a lot about, because there's a lot of theory in your courses.
Yeah.
There's a lot really packed with the why.
Well, and that's so many of my students. I mean, if you think about it, someone that's going to take instruction is probably well educated.
Yeah.
Not always. I mean, I've got a lot of blue collar clients too, but a lot of them, they learn that mountain bikes aren't cheap. If you own a nice carbon fiber mountain bike or 2 or 3, you're doing okay in life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
that's a really expensive toy right there.
Yeah.
So most people are successful. One guy, he was a concrete guy in Tucson. He builds homes, and so it sounds kind of blue collar, but I mean, he was, I think he was making a lot of money. He was doing very well for himself.
Yeah. Building a lot of homes.
Yeah, right. So I think it's people that understood that, education in anything is going to make you better at it.
Yeah.
As long as I suppose, there could be like a cult or something where that would be bad, where you got educated in stuff that's actually harmful to you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in most things, getting educated just means opening your mind to more outlooks on various possibilities.
Yeah.
you know.
Yep. Yeah, and going, to an instructor and taking one of your courses. I mean, because that's the thing about mountain biking is it's fairly accessible. You can just hop on trails and ride, which is what a lot of people do. But if you want to really accelerate that process, learn the right way, going to a course and getting a coach like yourself is the way to do it. I mean, that's what I that's why I took your course the first time 12 years ago, and my learning profile just like trajectory just went whoosh. I like entered a race after that. I was downhilling stuff that I was not even remotely capable of within the next very short time.
Wow, that's impressive.
Oh yeah,
that's great to hear.
It just really that's kind of like if you were to everyone's kind of looking for like the hack or the short hack. Well, a hack on something like this would be like go to a course, take some lessons,
yeah,
educate yourself properly. I mean, you can do that on YouTube, but YouTube doesn't have someone telling you what to, there's no one on the other end of YouTube, right?
Yeah,
telling you what to do and how to do it better.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've been fortunate that I've made a good living in this industry because I remember there was what do you call the triathlons on dirt? Ned Overend was doing so well in them.
Not like the Xterra.
Yeah, Xterra.
Yeah.
So okay. there was an Xterra in Keystone, Colorado, at the resort, and I printed these flyers because I figured, tri people are known to spend thousands of dollars on a helmet if it'll take a little bit of time off of their cycling, and stuff like that, right? Yeah. I've never, from my students that are tri racers, they tell me that, like everyone's just throwing every dollar they have at triathlon, at the biking anyway.
Yeah.
Because so I put this little flyer on every single car that had a bike rack on it, especially if it had like an Xterra sticker, which a lot of them did, saying, guaranteed 2 to 4 minutes off, or your money back in giant letters.
Yeah.
I didn't get one call.
Oh, really?
And I mean, I was watching those people, and granted, they sent them down one of the downhill trails, which I thought was not the smartest thing they might have done in an Xterra race.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they were getting off their bikes and walking. They were losing minutes of time.
Yeah.
With just some basic bike handling skills. They could have saved minutes in one section one or two sections I was watching.
Right.
And it was
wow.
And I saw some horrendous crashes too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's funny. I mean,
that's not funny.
Well, not funny, but I guess what's funny is that it's a great marketing strategy. Get out there, but funny that nobody would take you up on that.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get a single call because of that.
Wow.
I used to have a wrapped van, and I never got any business from that wrap van, I don't think. And then I just got some like a mini wrap on my truck, and the first time I took it to Trailhead, I sold this woman asked me about it, and she's buying a course for her and her son.
Oh yeah.
So I'm like, hey, the attitudes are changing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that was pot luck. I haven't had any success other than that so far at the new wrap.
Yeah.
But
that's funny. Marketing's a tricky thing.
It is a tricky
thing. Especially nowadays with all the social media and stuff. Yeah, speaking of like the articles and material on your website, just recently your email newsletter came through that had maybe it been a couple years. I'm not sure when you did this article, but it was talking about fear being your secret weapon. And I thought that was really good because it talks about a lot of what we talk about, being uncomfortable. But can you elaborate a little? How could fear be your secret weapon on the trail?
It's your secret weapon in life. Everything you're afraid of, you should do. I mean, other than like jumping into a volcano or something, but like, when you push through things you're afraid of, that's where you grow, but fear on a mountain bike can do a lot of things. It can save your life. It can say like there's a spot in Moab called the Notch, and to avoid the Notch, you can ride this Notch, which that guy Braden wrote up. If you saw that movie,
that documentary is unbelievable.
It was the most inspiring thing I've ever seen.
Yeah,
I mean, that was just crazy. But anyway, he wrote up the Notch, and I've ridden down the Notch, I don't know, 15, 20 times in my life. And my 50th birthday was the last time I rode the Notch.
Oh yeah,
and it's just like I got a wife and kids now, and I know I've got the skill to ride that, but if I make a mistake, I could get hurt really bad. So I'm like, I'm just going to walk that.
Yeah.
So that's when fear helps, right?
Uh-huh.
And fear can also help with getting you energized. Like think about when your first cross country race.
Yeah.
Dude, I was dry heaving, right? I was so nervous, right?
Oh yeah.
But think of the energy that gave me.
Yeah.
So if you can channel that energy, you know, so
Yeah.
so yeah, that's where fear, and fear tells you, say you're afraid to go into corners. What do you think you need to work on?
Yeah.
You're not afraid of those gnarly rock gardens because you're smooth. You're really smooth, and you're good at those gnarly rock gardens. But man, you always get trepidation going into corners.
Yeah.
Fear's trying to tell you maybe you should get better at cornering.
Yeah.
Or fear going to the rock garden. Maybe you should get better at riding through rock gardens.
Yeah.
So fear can be a great teacher.
Yeah.
You just have to pay attention to it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That was what Porcupine Rim Trail, right?
Yeah.
Notch and that documentary. That's kind of like a master class in
perseverance. My God.
Yeah, if you watch
and preparation
and how to just like that's kind of like an impossible move. He spent, I don't know, days and days and days and like hundreds of times. Like I thought he wasn't ever gonna get it. Like, and if you watch him. Like, this is how you, like, have the, like, I'm just going to figure this. His whole brain was constantly, like, I'm just going to figure this out.
Yeah.
Like, he got upset, sure. But he would never, like, he was just, like a Garmin computer, just, like, analyzing the whole way. Even though it took him, like, 1,000, after his 1,000th try, he was still like, okay, well, he's still, like, you get his brain still firing. Like, I'm going to, there was no, like, I'm not going to figure this out.
Yeah, it was so impressive.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
And when he actually did it, there's a move, we call it the up and over move. It's on the final piece of single track down to the river of Porcupine Rim. And it's even harder up and over going up, which I don't think anyone's ever even thought of attempting. Like I get there sometimes in the winter, we'll ride up from the river and I get there and, I just laugh. Like, I'm not trying that,
Yeah.
But anyway, it's maybe 300, 400 vertical feet into that 8,500 vertical feet day he was going to have.
Yeah.
And he tried it 31 times.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and it's a full-on interval.
Yeah.
He did 31 intervals, and then he still had 8,000 feet of climbing to go.
Yeah.
Like I would have turned around after those 31 intervals. I wouldn't have had anything left in my tank. I mean, how?
Yeah.
He just kept going.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's the most inspirational thing I've seen in a long, long time. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I want to have people, if like, just it's a good like lesson. Like this is like how you're gonna like figure something out. Basically, just like, watch this.
That's like life. That's such a I got into coaching when I was coaching the Steamboat Springs Winter Sports Club. Their mission statement was use sport as a metaphor for life to create basically better functioning people or humans. And at first I'm like, I'm teaching rich kids how to snowboard race. You know what I mean? Like I didn't think it was that noble, but this teaching kids how to set goals, how to achieve those goals, all the stuff that, I was taught reading, writing, arithmetic. I really wasn't taught much about goal setting as a child and then and setting sub goals and all that, and teaching those kids this and the growth I saw in those kids as humans is mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And so like your program, that's what's so cool about that. That's so different than my program because that's something that's going to affect that kid for the rest of their life.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I mean, that's really, really cool and give them so much self-confidence.
Yeah.
When I fall, I've got to get back up.
Yep. Yeah. It's all, kind of mirrors all the everything, in life and how to navigate life, essentially.
Right.
I mean, just life lessons.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, and failure is a natural and necessary part of the learning process.
Exactly.
Right. It's not this terrible thing that we should all fear.
Yeah. If you're not failing, then you're either not pushing yourself or you're the best in the world. And you're pretty much never the best in the world. So.
Exactly. It's like, and I used to get so mad at myself when I would fail, and it's just like, no, figure out like Brayton did. He failed like you said, thousands of times,
Yeah.
and he didn't get mad. He figured out, well, why did I fail? Let's fix that.
Yeah.
You know, and man, I've got so much respect for that guy.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I've never met him, but just massive respect after watching that video, that
Yeah.
movie. I mean, yeah, you know.
For sure. I can't remember the name of it now. We're like plugging it, but
I think it's like the amount of vertical feet it is, like 8,630 feet or something. Is the
oh,
name of
okay.
it or something.
Yeah. Climbing the whole porcupine.
Yeah, climbing
the
the whole enchilada, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty cool. Do you have many youth in your programs?
Yes, yes and no. I used to, when I was more into downhill racing and therefore more relevant in the downhill circles, I would have a lot of kids in my downhill courses, which was really fun.
Yeah.
You know, and now, you know, like that woman that I met in the parking lot with her son. Her son's 8, and I'm like, as long as he's got a parent, you know, I'm fine with that. And I've had 8-year-olds, and they've loved the whole thing, but you know, you just don't know. I don't know that 8-year-old. You know, does he cry at the, you know, at the slightest problem, or which I did when I was a kid. I'm not putting him down because I would have done that as a kid, but I might not have been great in one of my own courses when I was 8.
Yeah.
You know, taking it, you know, might not have been the ideal participant, you know.
Right. It makes it for a different dynamic for sure.
Yeah, you know, so that way the parent can pacify the child while I can continue coaching these other people, you know.
Yeah. And now there's I mean, things have probably changed in your courses that now people are on e-bikes, and so they're kind of more friendly to e-bikes, and people taking your courses on e-bikes.
Yeah, a lot of people are, and fortunately, most of my course takes place off trail.
Yeah.
So if there's places where they're not allowed, I had a man text me yesterday that's coming to the course this weekend and tell me that he's riding an e-bike, and his wife just heard that Sedona doesn't allow e-bikes, and I'm like, no, they don't.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know, you can take all my instruction from me because we're not on trail, but when we do the on trail portion in the afternoon, you won't be able to join us. You know, I'm like, you can ride on your own. I mean, this man is in his late 60s. I think that you know, I don't know, make it 55, make it 60. I don't know, but at some age, you know, I think we're just discriminating against old people right now.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, Jefferson County, Colorado allows e-bikes, which is right outside of Denver. And you've never seen trails crowded like Jefferson County, Colorado trails.
Oh,
crowded.
yeah.
It's half the reason I left that area. And they allow e-bikes, and there's been like 3 altercations. But there's been more than 3 altercations between just mountain biker and mountain biker than that, probably.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And don't quote me on but I mean, it's going fine. Most e-bikers are older people trying to get a bigger ride than they could on a regular bike. There are definitely some young people, young hooligans, that are out there being bad, but young people are always being bad, you know?
Yeah.
I defended snowboarding because it was mostly a young person thing. So for years we were banned from various resorts, and people teased us, and you know, and we were horrible people. And as a skateboarder, I was a horrible person as a child, you know? And it's funny, you know, it's like we make these giant rules because of a few bad apples.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it certainly makes it much more accessible to folks, that otherwise would struggle to ride. I think, big criticism it gets. What I've heard from people is that now they're going to be getting into trails that they shouldn't be getting into, kind of thing.
Yeah, but if these people have ever ridden an e-bike, it's much harder on an e-bike, especially if you're a beginner.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're going faster, so you're smashing into things. You have to look further ahead. And that's on the climbs. On the descents, you're you know, I'm definitely, compared to my enduro bike and my e-bike on most descents, I'm usually within 2 seconds. The e-bike's actually a little slower. And that's the e-bike on turbo mode, you know, or boost, as it's called with my Shimano now, but motor. But, you know, and then, like, there's a trail in Moab called a Massaback. It's a Jeep trail, so you can ride a mountain bike on it. And it's very technically challenged. It's got a lot of ledges, and it's like a 14% grade. And I think he's second place now, but Levi Leppenheimer, you know, used to ride for the Postal Service with Lance Armstrong.
Oh, yeah.
He's got the second fastest time up that now. And on my e-bike, well, my old specialized e-bike, on boost mode, I cannot beat his record.
Oh yeah. Wow.
You know what I mean? And I'm cleaning all the hard features that he might not have even cleaned, because it'd be hard if he's on a lighter weight cross country bike to clean some of those features just because they're chunky. But I can't keep up with him.
Yeah.
And I'll smash him on the downhills, I'm sure. You know what I mean? Whether I'm on a regular bike or an e-bike.
Yeah.
So it's a big to do about nothing, in my humble opinion. You know?
Kind of one of those things that, change is hard. And I remember when I took your course.
Yeah, change is hard, man.
I had one of those very first dropper posts, right, with the coils on there.
Yeah.
Was well, no, I didn't have one. I was the one with the scary bike that didn't have one. The long,
that's right.
long stem.
That's right.
And the narrow bars.
That
and
was
the
one
steep head angle. And then it was after that I got one of the first dropper posts.
Yeah, that's so funny, because it was right around then when all of a sudden it would be half my course had a dropper post.
Yeah.
And then it was 3/4 of the course. And now I haven't had a course with somebody without a dropper post in decades. It feels like, it's been at least 5 years. Like, everyone's got it.
Entry-level bikes.
Yeah.
They're on them. Yeah.
Are they really? That's cool.
Yeah. Pretty much.
What an advance. Of all the technological gizmos on a mountain bike, that is by far the biggest one,
Yeah.
It's bigger than suspension. It's bigger than disc brakes. It's big. Well, maybe not bigger than suspension. But it's hard to use that suspension if your seat's high. Let's just put it that way.
Yep. Yeah. But that got a lot of, it took a little bit for those to catch on.
Yeah. I used to sell gravity droppers, the original company.
Yeah, that's what I had. Gravity droppers.
Yeah. This guy, Wayne, says, he lives in Idaho. He started that business, and poor guy, I don't know, he was a poor guy. I think he did quite well with that business for a long time. But he did not want to make it internally routed, because he's like, these are bikes, they're not like, looks aren't that important.
Oh yeah.
And he would not make them internally routed, because his idea was keep it simple, stupid. I had gravity droppers that lasted 5 years, and then I remember I gave one to my coach Andy that I'd used for 5 years, and he used it for like another 3 years before it finally broke.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's 8 years out of a dropper post, because it was just a coil spring and 2 pins that went into a hole.
Yeah.
It was such a simple. It was the lightest dropper post ever, too. Way lighter than anything on the market right now.
Right. Crazy.
But fashion, overtook that.
Yeah. Now there's no way you would find one that's externally routed.
Yeah. One company, I saw the other day, one company still makes one, I think, for the few people whose frames aren't mounted that way, or just don't want to. I would almost do it externally now.
Yeah.
Getting it through that bottom bracket shell sometimes.
It's a chore.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah, it's a chore for sure. Cool. Well, let's I had a few questions, want to make sure we wrap up with here. you've biked all over the world, so it's probably not even a fair question. Anytime you talk about, like, what's some of your favorite trail? Do you have any like all-time favorite trails?
It's funny. Yeah. One, and I haven't gotten a chance to do it this year. There's two actually on South Mountain. One's called Old Man, and it's like going down this trail of loose rocks, like the size of your fists, that are all rolling. So you're like in a controlled avalanche the whole way down this trail, and there's like barrel cactus on the trail. It is so fun.
Oh, wow.
And I rode it last year because South Mountain's e-bike legal, and it's way, way in the back, kind of. And then I climbed up Corona Loma, which was really fun because it's a super technical climb. And on the e-bike, I could clean stuff that there's no way I could have ever, even in my prime, in my 30s or something, cleaned on a regular bike.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of South Mountain, there's a trail called 32nd Street, and it's just this raw downhill trail. And I hadn't ridden it. Well, I rode it last year with Cody Kelly one day, and then I rode it this year twice on my Canfield, on my enduro bike, and it's super fun.
Yeah.
So those are two kind of local ones, but there's so many great trails out there.
Yeah. What makes the those kind of stick out in your mind? What kind of trail is, so you like the kind of rowdier downhill type stuff, or?
Well, I'm actually slowly getting my thrills elsewhere now because
Yeah.
I mean, I was thinking about that. Like I put down a pretty good run on 32nd Street a month ago or so when I was down here coaching, and if I had crashed, I don't know what would have happened, but it would not be good.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's just jagged rocks everywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm 57. About to turn 58. I don't know. I don't know, if I hit the ground, I'm going to bounce like I used to bounce. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it's funny. Like in Moab, they built this new section as an easier way to end the whole enchilada. Instead of finishing on Porcupine Rim, you can come down what's called the Raptor Route, and it's got a couple trails on them that are just blue trails, but they're just corner after corner, and they feel like a downhill race run. Like you're just so focused, and you're cornering, and Haas has a trail called Red Mountain Rush that in Mesa, Arizona, that I just love because it's not hard. They call it a black trail, but it's not bumpy or anything. But it's fast, single track, and you're just swooping in all these corners, and you're dodging a cactus here, and But that seems, even though my speed's way greater, so it might not be safer. It just seems safer.
Yeah.
Because the thing about the gnarly trails is your speeds usually just aren't that great because it's so chunky. So
yeah, those are two kind of big different styles of riding too. And when you ask someone, it could be like, just super flowy, bermy, fun, really well put together from one turn to the next.
Yeah, that's what I like. It's just a trail that's well put together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's Moab luckily has quite a few that are just like a cornering clinic.
Oh yeah.
Like part of the whole enchilada is a trail called Hazard, and Hazard County is one of my favorite trails in the whole world. I mean, I can just do laps on that like every 4th of July for a while. I'm not sure if they did it this year, but Moab Cyclery used to have a 4th of July party there, and they'd bring one of the shuttle buses up, and we would just shuttle that thing and get like 4 or 5 runs in one day on it.
Oh yeah,
and it's just like a 9-minute downhill. It's really fun.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's really fun.
They've been doing a lot of work here. They call it the Mount Eldon Dry Lakes Trail System.
Oh, cool.
And they've approved this whole plan. Last year, they put in a lot of new trail. And we've got we're all looking forward to this. It's going to be a flow trail, sunset flow trail. It's going to be like somewhere around a 3-mile, like professionally built flow trail. They almost cut the whole thing in last fall before the snow started flying, and we're all looking forward to that. So they've been building a lot of those kinds of trails around here. That's really been up in the game. It's super fun.
I hope so. I mean, those trails kind of have to be well built.
Yes.
A lot of flow trails, I call them anti-flow trails.
Oh yeah.
Because they're 3 feet wide. You've got all these choices. Your brain's like, should I go high? Should I go low? What should I do?
Yeah.
Whereas it's so much easier on a true single track to really focus on what you're doing and where you want to go and all that. Whereas, I think too much if it's like an easier flow trail. But if they have nice jumps or corners that end with like like a hip jump out of the corner and stuff, where a beginner can roll it, but a better rider can actually hip that and stuff. I've ridden some that are just a blast also.
Exactly. Yeah. That's kind of the idea of this one. It's got, anyone can ride it, but anyone can have a lot of fun with it too.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which we're stoked for because Flagstaff's just kind of like, we have so many, it's kind of like the king of jank. We've got so many just like old school janky trails that were like social trails that people like just carved lines through and stuff.
You've got great downhill trails on Mount Eldon. Those are some of the best non-ski resort downhill trails I've ever ridden.
Yeah, there's some good stuff.
There's some good stuff there.
And they're really going to be amazing once they've
That's cool that they're putting all this money into it now and effort into it.
Yeah, you'll have to check it out. I don't know how often you can ride here, but all right, cool. Next question, since we're a youth program, we got to get some youth questions in here. You don't work with a lot of youth riders, but I just wondering if you have any like favorite stories or experiences involving any youth riders.
Yeah. long time ago, probably 2001 or 2002. There was a great mountain bike kids club in Boulder, Colorado called the Y Riders. It was part of the YMCA. And they took a course with me in Fruta. And it was incredibly fun. And Chloe Woodruff, or Woodrow, is it Woodrow?
Woodruff, yeah.
Woodruff.
Yep. Lives
When
in
she was
Phoenix.
Chloe something else, she wasn't married yet.
Yeah.
Who runs one of the kids series here in one of the high school leagues here.
Yeah.
She was in that course, and she was. I mean, she's still not the tallest person in the world, but she was this tiny little thing. And but they, the team manager made them all write me thank you cards. So I've got this whole little poster I made of all these little thank you cards.
Oh yeah.
And some of those kids, I mean, they kept in touch with me for like 5 years. Some of those kids.
Oh wow.
And it was really cool, and
Yeah.
seeing them progress, and
Oh wow.
and seeing Chloe,
Yeah.
Chloe, excuse me, seeing Chloe just crushing it out there in the World Cup, watching her in West Virginia a couple years ago. That was really cool,
Oh yeah. She went to the Olympics. Won,
Yeah, right.
Won World Cup. Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome.
That's
a good story.
That's really
Yeah.
cool. But yeah, I mean, oh man, there's a kid I coach who just took a private lesson from me, Ralston. He lives in like Emory, Utah. It's a very small town in the middle of the San Rafael Swell part of Utah. And man, he's an endurance rider. And I follow him on Strava, and he does like 140-mile rides with like 15,000 feet of climbing.
Oh, geez.
And it's just like, and he's
Yeah.
like 16 or 17.
Oh wow.
And
Kids getting after it.
it's amazing, to just watch, like, wow,
Yeah.
I wouldn't even fathom that. Like, that'd be tiring on a dirt bike,
Yeah,
It's
there's some
like-
kids that are just getting after it now.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And just, just seeing, watching the NICA League in Utah is huge. They have a race in Moab, and it takes up the entire Barham complex. It's bigger than Outer Bike.
Yeah.
It is just massive.
Yeah, they're a
It's-
huge league.
Yeah, right. And just
Yeah.
seeing that, that's just I never would have thought that was ever going to happen in my lifetime, and I just think that's really neat.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it's really like increased the just the riders out there now with thousands of kids
Yeah.
riding at the high school level. It's really cool.
And they're kids just coming out of nowhere, that just grew up on bikes, and they're just ripping.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
up till about 45, when a young kid cut in front of me, like at Whistler Bike Park, I used to be able to hang with them. And then the last few times I've been to Whistler Bike Park, some young kid will cut in front of me, and I'm like, I'll show you. And nope, he's gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, nope, I'm not fast anymore. And these kids have gotten amazing, is what I mean,
Yeah.
So just as any sport matures, it just gets the top end keeps moving up, and it gets tighter and tighter at that top level, like harder and harder to make it to the top of a sport.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. All right, last one before we wrap up here. What would you have any advice that you would have for a young rider coming up, whether it's skills wise or whatever kind of?
Well, first thing is, it's got to be fun. Make sure you're having fun. It's hard not to on a bike, but some people train a little too hard.
Yeah.
And I used to get overtrained quite a bit. And that might have been a nutrition thing for all I know. Who knows? But have fun. Seek out great coaching if you can find it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's funny. I'm from Alabama, which is a famous football state, and the coach Bear Bryant was his famous Alabama football coach, and he was famous for having the most boring team in the league, but they won all the time because they executed the basics so well.
Right.
And if you watch Greg Menard ride, a lot of people say it's boring to watch him ride. I think it's like poetry in motion, because he is so economical. He is so smooth. Like he almost has no style other than just being so smooth, and the winningest male racer of all time in World Cup history. But he's a man that just flawlessly executes the basics.
Yeah, fundamentals to perfection.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And it's beauty to watch for me.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing I try and hammer with even the kids that get fast racers and stuff. You want to like do drills and stuff, and some of them are like, well, just go for a big ride. It's like, well, Michael Jordan didn't get good by like not practicing layups all the time.
Yeah, you know, like when I was coaching Mitch Ropalato and Cody, sometimes, you know, they would be, in my opinion, about like 95% of Greg Menard's level. And so they'd say things to me like, Gene, you know, I've been doing these drills for 3 years. You know, I don't need to do the drills anymore. I'm just going to ride trail. I'm like, don't you race Greg Menard? And they're like, yeah. And then, you know, and one of them said, I think it was Mitch, he's like, yeah, I'm like 95% as good as Greg. I'm like, well, how are you ever going to beat him then? You know what I mean? It's like, he's got a better mental game. He's won World Cups already. You know what I mean? And you're 95% as good as him. You're going to have to ride way over your head, pray you don't crash.
Yeah, where you got to get the 5% from somewhere.
and then you watch, like, there's this kid, Asa Verminti from Durango, who's racing downhill in enduro. And you just watch that kid ride, and it's the same. Like, he's so fluid. It is like his mother's good friends with a good friend of mine, and so I've ridden with him a couple of times. And everyone's like, are you going to coach him? And I'm like, honestly, he's the first person I've met. Like, I've given Greg Menard body position advice. But that kid, I don't want him get him in his head. You know what I mean? Like, he knows what he's doing very well, and he's not in his head at all. You know, he's just out there ripping, and it's amazing to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff for sure. Well, I think that wraps it up for us. And we give a special shout out to the Hallows team at Benchmark Mortgage. We're in their awesome studio, so we just got to give a thanks for Chris for letting us use this amazing professional space here. So thanks so much for being on here, Gene. When I did your camp 6 years ago, I'm like, if I ever have a podcast, we got to have you on as one of the first guests, and here you are. So we've come full circle, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, well, thanks for having me on. This was a lot of fun.